Someone, do you know Nepali? People will not say no because Nepali is part of Indian constitution's official language. Bengali, people who speak in Bangladesh is also official language. Someone told me that Sinhalese should also become part of the cultural and the literary dialogue of South Asia. So Urdu is anyway part of it because Pakistan came out of British India. So the linguistic, we're not looking at unity, but looking at linguistic and literary dialogue. Whatever the language of the country is, we're not trying to say that, okay, you become one language. No. The objective is that can we have those languages and interact with themselves in such a way that represent the diversity, at the same time opportunities are created for translation, interaction, and engagement. So we'll start with first Rohini madam, and then I'll go back to ladies first.
Thank you. I'm very honored and humbled to be taking part in this Kalinga Literature Festival, which is formerly Kalinga used to be the seat of knowledge, culture, and history.
Yeah.
Uh, like you said, I mean, there is no border for literature and culture.
Absolutely.
Why? Because literature and culture emanate from the mind. They do not come from the body. There are no borders. There are no lines drawn that this is India and this is Nepal and this is Pakistan, this is Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. When you come to the literary mind, your mind soars and goes into all aspects, and you deal with culture and your understanding of literature, what you have read in school, what your grandmother has taught you is folklore. So that transcends borders. You know, there is no bringing it into a little nutshell that we are from Nepal, you are from India, so we should only read our literature. Like you said, languages, because of the translation, we in school read Shakespeare, right? So we learnt of loss and love through Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. We learnt of it in the Nepali literature through Muna Madan, one of our most famous poets, Lakshmi Prasad Devkota, who's supposed to be the Mahakavi of Nepal. So, you know, these similar emotions and empathies are conveyed by literature all around the world. Now, if you think of it today, you know, there's war and conflict going on in areas. And uh, I would like to quote, there are some very interesting authors and poets who have come up, who are writing their experiences and then the changes of poetry style and writing style because of the conflict that they are undergoing. So there is a very famous heart-wrenching story from Gaza written by Muzab Abu Tofa. His poetry, Forest of Noise, tells of the heart wrenching conditions that the Gaza inmates are dealing with and living through, and hoping for reconciliation and a safer world tomorrow. You go up to Yulia Musakovska, her book of Forest of Noise, speaks with a, and I quote her, she says, it is to speak with a mouthful of stones and nails, to speak through pain and spitting blood. So you're dealing with the trauma of Ukraine and of Gaza through poetry. Of course, you're seeing it on TV, on CNN, on BBC, and on Al Jazeera. You're experiencing visual things. But these sort of words just stay in your mind. You know, they stay, and the heart-wrenching tragedies that are happening in these areas stay with you. Why? Through poetry and through literature. We go back in time to Lord Byron. He wrote about the Napoleonic Wars, his poetry on darkness and the Minerva to tell about the Napoleonic laws. So these poets from all over the world are transcending and talking about aspects of war and cruelty and what they're experiencing, and then hoping for healing and the lessening of pain. I think in one way we transcend all that. Literature is also a form of diplomacy. As we can see it today, we are four people from different countries talking about a similar topic. Both are from Nepal, the lady here is from Sri Lanka, and our moderators from India. And what are we talking? We are talking about the same subject in our different aspects, in our different realizations of what we have experienced in our different countries. and bring it forth to the public. I wish there were more. I think they were hungry and all have left for lunch. But that's what I was thinking about, crossing borders with culture and literature. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rohini Madam, for setting the tone, talking about pain and poetry. And it is a poignant expression that captures well the pain that millions are going through around the world. And Gaza and Ukraine are symptomatic of that pain. They are very dramatic on our face, but similar pain people are going through around the world. Pain for food, pain for pain because of they're discriminated, pain because they're facing crime. So, thank you for setting that tone. So, I'll come back to Kanchana ma'am. Sri Lanka as a society uh, has gone through difficulties earlier in the past. Sri Lanka as a society has gone through difficulties in the past. Means there were violence and there were some terrorism, some LTTE, some that was happening. That is past. Now today, Sri Lanka has gone through a little bit of economic upheaval as well, as the world is going through. So during those difficult times, how have your poets, how have your literary giants have articulated that pain and looked at the transition, and are they looking at the world, as Rohini ji comes from Nepal but she's looking at Gaza and Ukraine as symptomatic of pain. So we started with pain. We'll definitely, we're not staying there, we're going towards realization, reflection, partnership, and peace. Might start with pain, but we're interested to go towards peace. Unless we recognize pain, we will not go towards peace. So that kind of thing. So how is this Sri Lankan poetry, maybe in Sinhalese and maybe in Tamil, or maybe in English, the writing in multiple languages, how have they captured that emotion and how have that engaged with the world? If that makes sense to you.
So when it comes to Sri Lankan poetry, actually,
It can be prose as well. It can be anything, writing. But
yeah.
poetry started. So yeah.
So if I talk about Sri Lankan poetry, so I would like to use the term Sri Lankan poetry because in Sri Lanka, people write both in Tamil and Sinhala.
Yeah.
So even though I don't understand Tamil properly, I want to include them as well, even though they are not here, since I am representing the country.
Yes.
So that's why I think it's very important we say that literature connects people. So that way, when it comes to it means connecting cultures and bridging borders through literature is truly important, and it has been already done, and still it's going on in the world. So let's say that it means when it comes to, you mentioned the war, you mentioned the economic turmoil we had to undergo. Therefore, when we had to face those things, there were poets, there were writers. I would like to include writers as well, fiction writers, not
Absolutely.
just poets.
Absolutely.
So they wrote about those problems. Through that, they showed the true picture. Some of the writers, they were bold and fearlessly wrote about the true picture of certain problems, certain issues undergoing. Because otherwise, sometimes you know that even the writers can blind people through their writing. They can close or hide the true picture and show something else. We know that people trust them, but there were writers, and there are writers who did it fearlessly. So through that, they showed the majority that what truth is. So that supported Sri Lanka to understand the politics going on in the country. Through that only, I think when it comes to Sri Lanka, we have a new government now. So that way, we have been able to make a new change. As if we take that, how literature helps to bridge borders through, as you mentioned, as this madam mentioned, that most probably through translation, we have been able to learn and understand other people. Sometimes I have not, even though I have not been to so many countries, I feel very familiar with the people from those countries because of literature. Through literature, I have read their stories, I have learned about them, I have uh, understood their problems and issues. So that way, when I come across them, when I see them, when I meet them, I feel very familiar. And you know that even when they face certain problems, that's why we feel like that they are, those issues are our issues as well. We are able to empathize with them thanks to literature.
Yeah, but my question or perhaps query or concern is, literature normally, if it reflects my society or the work that we do, or it reflects whatever is happening, is there a possibility to de-geographize? For example, as we said, pain as a human emotion, it doesn't have a geography. I'm saying whatever was going through in Sri Lanka at that point of time. So how are there poets and writers and performers in different ways? They're able to de-geographize that and look at global. We call it literary cosmology. Maybe you're able to go beyond and transcend that border and write something which thought-provoking. So this tradition exists in all literary traditions. People go, they go beyond the existential boundaries. So that is where perhaps a South Asian imagination. So nothing unique in South Asia that other regions don't have. They have the uniformity, their language, their literature. Europe has several languages. They have been able to create an European identity. So my question is not political. It can have political ramifications. Question is, literary cosmology, can they transcend the borders that they are in? So they do, but how they're doing it? So we are trying to understand and know. So from Basanji, sorry for coming to your last, because two ladies first.
No,
So yeah.
it's my privilege to be laying last. Nothing issue. Um, yeah. First of all, thank you everyone. Literature or any form of cultural art often try to make that kind of gap fulfilled through its emotional or its aesthetic values. Like in there is very interesting case in Nepali. The first ever Nepali cinema has made by the director called D.B. Nepali, and he made the film Satya Harishchandra, and that was performed, or that has broadcasted into Indian audience, not for Nepali audience first, And there are Indian Nepali authors like, let's say, Indrabad Rai or Lansing Bangdel and many more. Uh, who used to write in Nepali language, and they get most often readers in Nepal, and very few in India, and most often in Nepal. So political map is one thing. Nepal, India, let's say Bangladesh or Sri Lanka, they are different thing. But there is another kind of cultural map, which uh, which uh, which which lead us near than that kind of political map. So there is one book that got very famous in last decade in Nepal, that is called Palpasa Cafe, and that book shows about Nepali civil wars situation that got translated into Sinhala, this her country, and I think Sinhala people or Sri Lankan people also, I think, in my point of view, they can perceive their pain through Nepali literature also, because the same fate of insurgency and the same fate of common peoples and suffering are quite similar, like, and one of Indian freedom fighter, and that become very great Indian author, Phanishwar Nath Reno. I think many of them knows Phanishwar Nath Reno. Phanishwar Nath Reno went to Nepal and fought the freedom fight to the 1950, and Nepal's tallest political figure, Vishwesa Prasad Koirala, who fought Indian freedom struggle, you know. So that kind of, they, I accept that there is a kind of political map also, yeah, that dissects into Nepal, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and there is a kind of cultural, collective cultural consciousness that leads us near. Then, like anything happens in India or in, like she said, in Palestine or Gaza, you know, that makes a kind of emotions in that invokes emotion to us. So in my point of view, uh, we should we have to we have to work more often than before, because there is a translation, there is a many kind of literary device or tools, you know, that lead us nearer, you know?
Uh, most writings are national. Most writings. When you talk about nation or a country or a state, when political science, we study international relations, that nation must have people, must have territory, must have government, must have sovereignty, must have international recognition. So literature also responds to that kind of imagination. Nation as an imagination. So what are the potential of literature to go beyond the imaginaries of nation? Yes, I'll come back to that, Rohini ma'am. So imaginaries of nation. So nation as fluid as it is today, or as strong as it is today, there is a force of globalization happening. There is also deglobalization happening at the same time. Because with Trump coming to power, there is a hyper nationalistic America first is there. So in the literary community, people who are thinkers, thought leaders, reflective analysis, what are the opportunities that literature can transcend?
Thank you for the question. This is so interesting because, you know, in today's world, I think we have extremely strong, uh, might be little controversial leaders manning the world. And doing that, you know, our perspective of our countries, they're bringing back the national spirit. We are white, we are this, we are, you know, so all that is happening. But I think the term soft diplomacy really comes into play now. Look at where we are sitting today, right? We are people from 3, 4 different countries sitting together. Thanks to the Kalinga Literature Festival, we've transcended all borders. We've transcended these things of this is my nation and that is your nation and this is nationalism. We are coming forth with ideas that we have grown up with. We have grown up with, let's say, English education, Sri Lankan, Indian, Nepali education, but we learned literature in all forms from our own countries, from across the world. Who hasn't heard of Shakespeare, right? So, sitting in Nepal and India, we read about Shakespeare and read about all his works. So, I think literature transcends all borders, you know, and this soft form of diplomacy that these literature festivals bring about, like the Kalinga Literature Festival has brought about 5, 6 countries, speakers from all these people who've left their jobs, who've left to come and speak about their love of literature, whether it's prose, poetry. I mean, I'm just a humble cookbook writer. I mean, so, but you know, talking about my passion, my former passion was literature. I combined it with cooking later. So, you know, we are writers all in our own, let's say, spheres, but I think we blend. We blend with our love of literature and culture.
I think that word blend creates an imagination of blenders, the juice
Yes,
blenders,
absolutely.
the
So we are
blenders.
in a blender form right now,
Right.
you know, speaking about all our different ideas from our different backgrounds and our different perspectives. We've come here to be on a, you know, forum together, sitting on the stage, talking to the audience and telling them our perspectives. And the way they receive it is theirs, you know. I mean, they will, I'm surely take 1 or 2 sentences back from today's session and think about it and say, okay, you know, the Sri Lankan lady, what her perspective was about her war in her country. The Nepalese were there. We went through an insurgency as well for 10 years, and that created a lot of poetry. And I think tragic, you know, sessions in life, tragic experiences. They say the best poetry and the best prose comes forth when you are in pain. So when you're happy times, of course, you have happy poets like Wordsworth and the daffodils springing in the spring, and all those happy little emotions come out. But I think the pain brings forth the most gut wrenching poetry and the prose from the heart, because that is really affecting you more. So that's
Right, what we can see here, 3, 4 people speaking in English language. I think when English was imposed on us, it was an imperial agenda or colonial agenda. So South Asia has at least achieved one thing, that once you have started going to regional literature and articulating that in English, you have de-imperialized English.
Absolutely. But they say we speak in English better in India than they do speak in England. So that's
Yeah.
okay.
Right. So, yes, coming back to you, the same thing, like national imaginations are central to us. But do you think English is also can be a South Asian language? It has become. But apart from that, though it is not our native tongue, many students have started learning that as their native tongue now. So do you think that is in absence of a particular overarching language in this subcontinent, English becomes the communicating link? But not enough translations are happening across languages and cultures. Why do you, why does, what can be done to improve that, and why is it happening?
Thank you for that question. That is really interesting because we all know that English is a link language. Nowadays, it means it's like that. If you don't know English, it's like that, then you won't be able to communicate anymore. But when it comes to English, you told that it's an alien language. It's not ours. Can't we have another language as a South Asian language? But why can't we make English ours? Why should we give the ownership of English to them just because they invented the language? Just because someone else is using one language, why can't we make it ours? That's my point. So I think that India has done it better than Sri Lanka has done, because uh, years ago Sri Lanka made Sinhalese the national language. It was the only national language in the country, so it created a large number of people. The more languages you know, the more empowered you are. So what happens to Sri Lanka is that when they make Sinhala the national language, the other languages were ignored. So we don't know Tamil. See, I feel that if I knew Tamil, then I would have done a better job when I go to Chennai. But thankfully, so Sinhala is my mother tongue. I still think in Sinhala, but I was compelled to learn English, and I'm thankful because of that language only we are sitting here and expressing our views and exchanging our opinions and all. So my point is, okay, if we see that one language is linking each and every person in the world, okay, let's make it our language. Then but I see the value of the other languages as well, especially the national languages, because it with those languages only the cultures and traditions can be transmitted to the world.
Right.
Otherwise, if the languages die, with the language a culture dies.
Certain culture dies, yes.
Yes.
Just to add to that question, there is a historical connect between Kalinga and Lanka.
Yes.
And Buddhism spread, and kings and their exchanges with Sri Lankan communities, and a certain affinity of fashion or food, and also a kind of language, the way Sinhalese are spoken. So some people say, okay, if you know Odia, you can learn Sinhalese quickly.
Yeah, there
So
are so
people-
many similarities.
Similar,
I noticed
similar.
similar words.
Similarity. And
Yes.
what is the discussion there in the literary or intellectual community or historians about Sri Lanka's historical connection with Kalinga? Have you come across something like that?
Sadly, in Sri Lanka, we don't have any dialogue related to how Kalinga affected Sri Lankan society and the culture. Because I think one reason for that is Sri Lankans have to had to face so many other problems and issues.
Including colonialism and all that.
Yes,
all that
including
problem.
colonialism, and we had to face
ethnic crisis.
yes, ethnic crisis. After that, we had to face some economic inflation, and Sri Lankans never had that. It means you can keep promoting cultures and literature when you are in peace, when you are at peace. But when you have to attend to some other, uh, especially like, if I say that burning problems, I don't know whether it's the correct term, but that they had to address them first and look into the rest of the things.
Yeah, work in progress.
Yeah.
So nation building becomes a kind of work in progress. But peace cannot be an absolute dream that the peace will come, then we'll do it. But peace can happen piecemeal. In piecemeal peacemaking, peace can happen also while the conflict is happening. There can be ceasefire.
Yes.
So the potential of peace is also involved in the pain.
Yeah, there's a huge potential that we can keep promoting about Kalinga culture and how it affected Sri Lankan culture, and everything can be done. Now, there's a huge potential because the people, the population, Sri Lankan population, have faith in the current government.
Yes. Thank you for that. With the Nepalese team, uh, there is a great connection with Lord Jagannath with Nepal. And is there a literary tradition or culture that talks about Nepal's ancient traditional connection other than Ramayana? Ramayana has a connection. The Mata Sita comes from Nepal, and there is a connection. And Rajarshi Janak, the tallest king, wise king, philosopher king, is from there. And maybe at that point of time there was no Nepal, no India in that sense, but there was interaction and no borders and no nation in the modern sense. But is there any connection, because the Saligramas that came from Gandak, on which Jagannath Singhasana, the throne, is there, it is said that more than 100,000, 1 lakh Saligram came from Nepal. So that is a folklore there. So is there any historical discussion that happens, Kalinga's, Nepal's connection in the past, and how the then king sent those saligramas to his king to create that Singhasana?
I think I know a little bit of that because I did a podcast. There's a very interesting, very ancient cultural relationship, religious relationship between Nepal and Orissa, mainly Puri. The Jagannath temple and the Pashupatinath temple were both established by the Govardhan Mutt. Until now, they are under the Govardhan Mutt.
Presiding Mutt.
Presiding Govardhan Mutt. And there's this beautiful tradition where Gajpati of Puri and the Naresh of Nepal are the only two kings who can enter the inner sanctum sanctorum of the Jagannath Puri temple.
Yes.
There are just a few priests, and these two kings are allowed to go in. And
That is a special service when Nepal's king comes.
when
in Puri,
when
there's
the
special
king
service.
comes, and in fact, it is only the king of Nepal who is allowed to stand on the Ratna Singhasan and do the arti.
Yes.
Even Gajpati Puri is not allowed that.
The most
That
privileged
honor, yes,
position.
Most privileged position. So imagine when we are talking about cultural ties and we are talking about borders. I mean, look at this in centuries from before. This is a thing has been followed. There was another custom where the kasturi of the Nepali musketeer used to be sent for special religious functions.
Rituals here.
That ingredient used to be used for some of the religious ceremonies. That has been discontinued since monarchy was de-established in Nepal. But I mean, that tradition, I think itself just shows that when we talk about borders, there are no borders. Where religion, culture, literature are concerned, there is no border.
This Saligram thing comes into picture when Lord Chaitanya,
Yes.
who is one of the pivotal Bhakti movement pioneers like Nanak, Kabir, and Chaitanya, when he came to Puri, he didn't leave again. He stayed here, but he didn't go to the sanctum. Sanctum, when he was saying, in Odia we say, Lakhe Shida, Saligram. उनके ऊपर सिंहासन के ऊपर आप बैठे हो. So he didn't actually, he said the entire sanctimonium and say सारे में नारायण है. So Narayan lives. So Saligram is the living embodiment of Narayan.
And the king
So
of
he didn't
Nepal,
enter.
yes,
He didn't
he's
enter.
supposed to be the incarnation of Vishnu.
Yeah.
So that just shows that look at the link there. I mean, a lot of people are not aware of this.
Right.
But it's so interesting that we have such a link. I mean, look at it, thousands of miles away from Nepal, and the
And it is
Gajpati and Puri.
mind-boggling at that point of time how the king would have sent those saligramas from
From
Nepal, Gandaki, Gandak.
Gandaki. That's the area that they come from.
And also that king, someone told, 12 years of tapas, penance, to find 1 lakh full, unbroken, complete saligramas. And that work was tremendously inspiring. And it was also not sent in one go. 1 lakh saligramas, they're all like metals, right? Sorry, patthar, right? Stones. Right. So
It's called the Ratna Singhasan.
Ratna Singhasan.
So all those stones might be precious stones also. I haven't seen the Ratna Singhasan. I don't think that any of us have seen it, but might be precious stones.
what is
also.
there, we have not
Also,
seen. We have seen
don't
them
know.
outside. What is there inside the
Outside,
Singhasana,
yes.
we have not seen.
In fact, the saligram for the Ayodhya temple also came from Nepal.
Yes. So my point was to find out, because we're meeting in Kalinga Literary Festival, and there is huge interconnections that happened. Our forefathers, foremothers, they actually walked to Sri Lanka, right? So the story says that they walked to Sri Lanka, they walked to Burma, they walked to Thailand, they went to Nepal. Nepalese people came here. The king himself actually laid the Saligrama Shila trail, himself coming and saying that, yes, I have got this Shilaj after 12 years of penance. This story goes. And now this is for Jagannath Singhasana. So I'm saying there are so much one can study and find out on stories and like that. So are there creative ways of interpreting those folklores or those certain historical evidence that we find? Are there literature on them? That's what I'm saying.
Okay, fine. Okay, I think yeah, most of things. I think Rohini ma'am already said about it. So there is a huge cultural assets that comes from our tradition, that comes from our mythical and many past years history. So it also has to be translated into modern eras literature and music and other form of culture, even performance or even sports, and as he said before, that soft diplomacy, ये होना चाहिए. Soft diplomacy should be occurred in our South Asia, and collective South Asian consciousness only can lead to the world that we have common experience, common civilization. That is not much differences between Sri Lankan ideas, Nepalese ideas, Indian ideas.
So
They
if
are
you
not
want to
very-
build upon, there are ideas you can build upon.
we have to raise that kind of collective consciousness. That I think whenever Rahul Bhattacharya writes about or Sly Company of people who cares, or let's say some Bengali writer Monica Ali or other writer comes here, even Sian Karuna Tilaka or other Sri Lankan writers or Nepali authors. Many Nepali authors are coming. They are writing in English, and many books are translating. And that tradition, that old form of that tradition should be come up with new eras.
I'll just
consciousness.
add one point. In last few years, if you look at Indian fiction writing or creative fiction writing or non-fiction presented as kind of historical writing has increased. If you look at Amish Tripathi, people who have creatively presented a certain historical mythological facts or stories in such a way that is appealing to the mass. So there are differences.
Devdutt Patnaik or
Devdutt Patnaik.
other writer.
Yeah, he also calls himself a mythologist. So there are opinions which differ from one person to other whether this happened or not. But there is a surge, if I can say surge, there is a surge in that kind of writing in India. So that is what I'm saying, trying to find out in our neighboring South Asian countries if that is happening. And if there is a link that we can connect each other.
Retelling of
Retelling the past.
Past,
Yeah.
That should be.
That is one creative way to engage with past also, because past is not past only. Past Past is actually
Basically,
is
it
how
deals with
we have
present.
been to the present, and it has a lot of, we use the word pregnant with possibilities. So past has that, future possibilities are there. So with the last sentence, I would like to say we started with pain as a human emotion, very powerful human emotion, also a powerful human experience that we would not like everyone to go through that and not cause at least. And if something is caused, at least stand for that person and speak about it. We started from pain, not just becoming bystanders and say, okay, the person is in pain, okay, no problem. No, a person is in pain, let me recognize that the person is in pain. And that pain is also has the potential to lead towards peace. That is where we started. Let the peace work continue, and wherever we are in pain, still that engagement with the peace can happen. So with these words, I will open the session to some questions if you have, or
Our society is increasingly becoming violent, whether it is war, whether it is insurgency, communal riots, or anything for that matter, they are very far off. But even near us, we see that even on small matters, people are stabbing each other, people are killing each other. So society, basically, what I'm telling is the society is trying to is becoming more and more violent. You have seen violence. We have also seen violence. What is the even many criminals? They said that we have got inspiration from films to do crime. So whether in creative art, whether it is literature or films or whether violence should be portrayed or it should be curtailed. What is your opinion about this? Should we not portray violence, or say that it is a society, literature is a reflection of the society, so let it be shown, let it be
before
spoken.
Rohini madam and our panel response, three quick pointers. One, with the onset of digital technology media, we are able to see more things happening around the world. Maybe हम उसे we should not extrapolate and tell society has become entirely highly violent. That is one observation. We can disagree on that. Point is, whether violence against women were happening earlier or not, answer is yes. Have they increased to the proportionate of population? Answer is yes. Have they become visually coming to our mobile and television and newspaper? Answer is yes. So are they being reported more? Answer is yes. So how do you see violence in public life? It's maybe one or two ways. One, they are being reported, which is a good thing. They should be reported. Because earlier, how thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, people committed violence in the name of religion, name of territorial aggrandizement, name of politics. Then they justified. Right. So, is Mahabharata as a historical, mythological, or storytelling platform is violent, or it is establishing dharma, and then the subsequent backward integration of waging violence is justified? So we can debate that, all that. But anyway, I tried to try to simplify, but perhaps I made it more complicated. So the simple question is, should violence be shown or not?
No, violence is a part of human nature, right? In human nature, we have love, we have passion, we have empathy, and aggression. They're all components of the human brain and of human nature. Now, what has happened in the old days, the duties of the family were so restrained. How a son should behave to the parent, how the child should behave to the mother. Those were so restrained that these aggressive, I think, empathies in a person were suppressed. What has happened today, the world is changing. And like you said earlier, social media is playing such an important part. Now, if you remember the toys your children played with, and the toys your grandchildren are played with. Look at the difference. We had little fairy tale, dolls for the children, little cars, and soldiers on horses for the boys. Today, you have men with weapons that the children are playing with.
Video games.
What are
and,
they
yeah.
playing on video games? How is this one killing that one? How is that one killing that one? Oh, I've killed that one. This word of, there's so much aggression. We are putting these hands, these toys of aggression into the hands of our little children with unlimited time. They are on their iPads, so all that I think is conditioning the brain. We should. There should be time limits for iPad. There should be time limits. We as parents should be conscious of what type of toys the children are playing with, who they are associating with. Before in the old world, I mean, the children were playing around with the cousins. Sometimes you hardly interacted with your own kids. They would come and wish you in the morning. I mean, I'm talking about my time. How my parents, we'd wish them in the morning and evening, and we'd be all over the place. They didn't even know. My mother didn't know what subject I was doing in college. She said, "Beta, do very well in your philosophy," and I was doing psychology. So things like that happen. Now we are so conscious, but we've lost control of what the children are really dealing with. And because of peer pressure and social media, God knows what's happening to their brains. So that is increasing the levels of aggression, which we as parents should
I think,
really
I think, I think
control.
one takeaway from Rohini Madam's answer is conditioning.
Conditioning.
And normalizing, conditioning and normalizing violence. For example, मैं गुस्सा हूं तो इसको मैं तोड़ सकता हूं. If I'm angry, I can break it. So normalizing violence is something that is also normalizing violence at home, in my mind, normalizing violence in the street, and that can be replicated elsewhere. And as I grow up, I can take a gun and kill someone who doesn't just he just said, "Hi man, where are you going? I just don't like that man. I'll kill." So normalizing this kind of street violence has become also natural. So I think question is very important, but I don't think a straight answer is there. And if you see a film, there is a film recently released, Kill, Kill, a film, Bollywood film. They have made violence look as aesthetic. Very interesting term. Violence looking aesthetic. And that actually gut wrenching.
There was animal movie.
Animal, yeah. I think his point is very well taken. Sir, we don't have answer.
I have a question.
Yeah.
As far as Lord Jagannath and Jagannath culture is concerned, there is a profound connection between Nepal and Odisha. So, are there any efforts on the part of Nepalese people, rather Nepalese friends of Odisha and the government of Nepal to popularize Jagannath culture in Nepal? I'm not sure whether any Jagannath temple is there and whether the people of Nepal, they worship Lord Jagannath in their homes or in some community centers. Thank
Very
you.
interesting, just last summer, my grandchildren and children were in Nepal. So we took a tour around the 3, 4 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, which are the Patan Museum, the Bhaktapur, the Palace Museum. And we had a guide. Usually we walk around because we are from Nepal. We think we know everything about it, but we had a guide. And it was so interesting to see that there is a Jagannath temple in the main courtyard of Bhaktapur, which was built in, I forgotten the Raja's name, but it was built in his time. So there is a great connect, not just that the two kings are, visiting each other's temples, but that Jagannath temple was built then.
But is this temple built in the pattern of the temple in Puri? Same architecture? Temple architecture?
Similar. It's Indian architecture because the
Okay.
Nepalese temples are mostly pagoda style, and this one is Indian style. It has so it's very interesting that there is a Jagannath temple and built centuries back in the one of the main courtyards of the palace of Bhaktapur. Well, you see, a lot of people come for the Char Dham Yatra. And Jagannath Puri is, of course, one of their destinations, you know. So people are very aware that, you know, we have to go to Jagannath, we have to go to Puri. My daughter and my son-in-law got married in Puri, right? So the first invitation for the wedding was to Lord Jagannath. So that is a great point. So there's a great connect between Nepal and India.
Thank you so much. And it's pleasure to have you all. So, volunteers, can you please felicitate our extremely learned panelists, and they can go and grab
Sir,
a
madam,
plate.
Sri Lanka. I had been to Sri Lanka. Kandy. Kandy is called mini India. That Mahipal Buddhist structure. That truth is there. The relic of Lord Buddha is there. World famous temple, no, Lord Buddha. So from Odisha, Kalinga, this is Prince Mahendra and Princess Sanghamitra. They have a very clandestine way. They have taken this relic to Sri Lanka at the cost of their life. No. So you see the connection. I talk in Jagannath and Nepal, Odisha, Kalinga and Sri Lanka through Lord Buddha. So what is the impact? Same question, but only change the place, culture, and change the religion. What is the impact? I have visited myself, but I saw in that Sirimava Bandaranaike auditorium in Colombo, the 10 years back, the height of LTT and other things, the violence in that cultural program, no, that is depicted the violence. Violence is saying that no warrior dance, no modern girls and boys dancing with pilot dress, pilot, no aeroplane pilot and war. So I thought the cultural, that violence also is there in the cultural programs. And violence means not direct violence, the impact, undercurrent. Because Buddhism is peace, no? Famous for peace. But at the peak of LTT, myself have seen in Colombo that auditorium, very famous auditorium, Sri Mamba Bandaranaike auditorium. So this is there. So how the youngsters, no, cultural gap, their culture. Last is from Pakistan. No, Pakistan is here. I have attended some program in Delhi. Pakistani poets. That poet told, young poet, I gave my daughter's name Mira. Mirabai, you know, famous Mirabai. Uh, he gave his daughter's name Mira. Staying in Rawalpindi, he became a pariah. No, you gave a Hindu name to your daughter, being a Muslim. So the culture, the name, the no tradition is a very, very impact in literature.
Maybe she's now thinking what to say.
Yes.
So he didn't have much a question. He had made an observation. That is, observation that so kind of Kalinga was kind of source migration of Buddhism.
Yeah.
Or if I don't want to use the word, reaching out. So Buddhism reaches out to Sri Lankan island from Kalinga. And most people look at to follow the story of Ashoka and Kalinga war. Then Buddhism spreads after him in a much bigger form. So Ashoka sent to Southeast Asia also and Sri Lanka.
So what is the question?
Observation, not more question.
Okay.
And also the observation is the contradiction that exists in that Buddhism stands for peace. But people who are enacting certain pleas in government, there is certain element of representation of violence.
Very comprehensive observation. Thank you. Thank you.
Sincere thanks to Professor Kamlakant Das sir for moderating this lovely discussion here. We'll make it quick. We all are hungry. So I would request sir to felicitate our panelist. Audience, can we have a round of applause, please? I would request Basanta sir to felicitate Professor Kamlakant sir. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for your patience.
हाँ हाँ प्लीज आप आ जाइए ना ऊपर आ जाइए हाँ हमें अच्छी
Yes, sir. अभी lunch break के बाद